I
believe so.
Jim is, do we have a quorum? We do.
We do, yeah.
Okay. First item of business is to approve the minutes from the November 2nd meeting.
Well, I call the meeting to order.
Oh, call the meeting
and
to
then
order.
I've got our housekeeping items.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, the meeting is called to order.
Good evening. My name is Scott Wagner. I'm the Lawrence Airport Manager, and welcome to the February 1st meeting of the Aviation Advisory Board. And I just have a few housekeeping items for this hybrid meeting. City staff and aviation board members will be in person and online. Virtual participation is allowed for any participant, including staff and the public. Live public comment can be made in person here at City Hall or virtually using the Zoom link. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and on cable channel 25. If you're on Zoom, please remember to please mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled and all chats will go directly to me. When the chair calls for in-person public comment, individuals should indicate if they wish to speak and staff will direct you to the podium here at City Hall. Individuals participating via Zoom should use the raise hand function to indicate that they wish to speak. And please state your name before speaking, and comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn off individual videos to minimize distractions during the Zoom meeting. Now I'll turn the meeting back over to our board chair, Clancy Maloney.
I'll try to get back organized. Okay, has everybody read the minutes from November 2nd? And if so, and I need a motion to accept them. May I have one from somebody?
I'll move.
That's Chris?
David.
David, a second?
Second.
From Dan. And I'm going to take a roll call vote because we need to do that. Richard?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Myself, aye. David?
Aye.
Jim is not here. Tiffany?
Aye.
Okay.
Jim will be here momentarily.
Yeah, okay. The second item on here is the airport manager's report, which we want to suspend for a moment so that we can get the terminal report from Andy, right?
Yes. I know Andy needs to hop off pretty quick, so we'll turn over the first regular agenda item to Andy Bodine, who's been our primary consultant on this project. And I did lay on everyone's chair up at the DIAS the terminal construction schedule as we've laid it out so far to date. And I'll turn it over to Andy for an update on this project.
Thanks, Scott. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, good to be with you all. I wish to be there in person, but appreciate Scott, facilitating, moving the schedule around to accommodate me. So I think the last time that we talked was the November 2nd meeting, and we were on the, I think, precipice of receiving bids for the terminal modifications project, both the base bid and additive alternate. We did receive favorable bids on that project. We did only have one bidder. That was First Construction, but we're pleased to say that we made the award to First Construction and look forward to getting construction started. So on November 2nd, I tried to kind of lay out some of the nuances of how we've structured the project. That's really been broken down into a base bid and additive alternate. Our focus within the base bid piece of the program was to focus on the areas that were going to be eligible for the ATP grant that you all were awarded through the FAA's competitive process in the middle of last year. That was slightly over $1 million. And so the way that our plans were structured were to create a base bid set of plans that would align with the FAA's objectives of creating a more ADA accessible facility, replacing aging infrastructure, and just overall eligible items per the AIP handbook that kind of governs, what items are eligible and what items are not. So within that base bid, we were able to include almost all of the terminal work that we had previously talked about. We also included ADA accessible sidewalk, ADA accessible spaces, and some of the paving directly in front of the terminal itself to help various areas. So all of that is taken care of underneath the base bid. And then we structured the additive alternate as a way to reconfigure the parking lot like we had all, talked about and shown before, to overlay the entrance road, and then to accommodate some of the ineligible items that are ineligible per the FAA's AIP handbook. And so those were the spaces primarily related to the FBO portion of the terminal. And the reasoning behind that is because, the city or the sponsor realizes, a lease fee, they're making money off of that space from the FBO. And so that makes it ineligible for federal funding. And so we wanted to include that as part of the additive alternate piece of the project overall. We made a second round application in November, about the same time that we opened bids, to hopefully cover all of the eligible pieces of the additive alternate. So that would be the paving, and some of the other eligible items within the additive alternate, to hopefully get you guys a second round ATP grant as well to cover the eligible pieces of that part of the project. We're still waiting to hear on that, but we did submit a grant application for that work, knowing that even if you guys are unsuccessful on that second round of funding, that you do have non-primary entitlement available. And I know Scott and Kyle Gonerwitz have been working diligently to make sure that you guys are all taken care of from a local share side of things as well. So it looks like Scott's got the schedule pulled up there on the screen. We're looking at over the next couple of weeks. We've received the grant agreement for the base bid, and I would expect that once we hear on the ATP second round of funding, whether or not that ends up being successful or not, that we'll have a second grant agreement that comes in relatively shortly after this, depending on funding source, that will be passed through City Commission, just like the grant agreement for the base bid. And we'll get things rolling with first construction. We want to take, the idea is that we really take the next 4 to 8 weeks and start to get some of the material submittals in from first construction. With some of those building materials, they are sometimes longer lead time items. And so we wanted to provide, a decent amount of time in that 4 to 8 week period to start to get shop drawings in from them, have our staff review those as part of our construction management services to you all, and make sure that they're in line with the plans and specifications that we developed for this project. So construction, we're planning on starting in early April. It's 120 calendar days for completion of the building work. And we think that the paving work that's going to take primarily place, during the additive alternate, or in the additive alternate piece of the contract, can take place concurrently with the building work that's going on too. So hopefully you guys have a brand new, big, beautiful terminal and new entrance road and more efficient parking by the early part of September. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you all have, and just reiterate that we appreciate the opportunity to have worked on this project with you guys.
Anybody? My only question is, how does it impede or implode or work with other schedules we've got going on? Like the gas people and that kind of thing. Is there any import with that?
Yeah, so that will be part of our initial kickoff with first construction. We've got some phasing built into the plans itself, but we really want to work with you guys and stakeholders to make sure that, when we do closures of the roadway, that it's only one lane at a time, or that it's done at off-peak periods to make sure that we minimize or even eliminate any impact to your users, Clancy.
Okay, great, because there'll be at least 1 or 2 other projects going on at the same time. Okay,
Yep.
Thanks, Andy.
You bet.
A question I have is, as far as normal airport operations, as far as transient traffic, because this is going to encompass, the KU graduation, a lot of different events that come through Lawrence. What's the access going to be like for restrooms and facilities, and keeping the FBO open during this time?
Yeah, the idea is that the FBO stays open and that access to the restroom stays open as well. We've actually got a nice, kind of a nice path to that south side of the building that still allows access to the restrooms itself. And, I guess kind of luckily, you know, or with a lot of foresight on your guys' part that you rehabbed those bathrooms before we even embarked on this terminal program. So that means they're not being touched as part of this project. And we would, you know, it would be our intent that those remain open and accessible during the construction project.
Super. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay,
You might see members of the public have questions.
yeah. Anybody? Yes, not? Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you all.
Scott, do you want to proceed or do you want to go on with?
If you don't mind, Clancy, I
Doesn't
think
matter.
I could roll through my airport manager's report pretty quickly.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we'll skip back in the agenda to the first item, and I'll get to it here, which was the airport manager's report. And several of these topics are on later in the agenda as well. Just a few quick updates that I'll highlight, and then we've got a rather packed agenda tonight, so I'll try to quickly go through these. And again, all these materials were posted with the agenda packet tonight. Our annual aircraft inventory report was due December 15th, and not too many changes from last year, and I reported the numbers there. We've applied for yet another grant opportunity. FAA on December 29th issued a NOFO, a Notice of Funding Opportunity. Again, some of these funds are coming out of the bill legislation that was passed in November of 2021. This particular NOFO was under the FAA's Climate Challenge initiatives that they're pushing out. And we thought that the Taxiway A project with the added replacement of the taxiway lighting with LED lights seemed to best fit the guidelines for that particular notice of funding opportunity. So I worked to submit a grant application by the end of January to meet that deadline. I just wanted to report on the KAA and the Four States Conference and get those dates out there. The KAA conference will be held, that's the Kansas Association of Airports, this June 14th, 15th, and 16th up in Atchison. So it's nearby this year. And this is also a discussion item on your agenda for later tonight as to if board members feel like they want to attend this year. It'd be a great opportunity to go to that conference, or the Four States Conference is always held in the Kansas City area, and those dates are August 23rd to 25th. So you'll get a chance to talk about that in a bit. Andy already reported on the next item. We applied for a second round of bill funding for the additional terminal items. So last I heard from FAA is they plan to announce those awards either in late February, early March, and we applied for $1,075,000 in additional funding under the second round of that funding opportunity. The United Way event we had on our agenda last November, just to kind of debrief. I was able to meet with the new Caw Valley United Way director a couple weeks ago, and they've just now hired a new kind of Douglas County vice president. Their advisory committee plans to meet here in February to discuss whether they plan to have that event at the airport again. So I'll continue to be in touch with them, and we'll report back more at our May meeting. The fuel farm repair, it seems like we've been talking about this forever. It's been about a year since it first came to my attention that we needed to replace the pumps. They finally come in, and they're too big.
Oh,
We'll be able to use them, but we need to make some modifications to the fuel farm kind of rack system to replace some electrical equipment. So staff is working through those issues with PB Hoydale Company that got the bid on that project. I'm continuing to do outreach in the community about the airport because there's just lots of interest in what's going on. So I'm going to present to the Lawrence Rotary Club on Monday, May 22nd at Maselli's is when that club meets at noon. So any board members are welcome to attend that. I think on the November airport manager's report, I had the funding grant applications that we'd applied for through the KAIP program. I did hear through my work on the KA board that particular program is going to receive an increase in funding through the state budget this year in the amount of $10 million. So I'm more optimistic than I have been in terms of maybe we'll get some of these grant applications, and award announcements are supposed to be made in February. So I'll have more to report at our May meeting on that grant opportunities. Just a quick update. I attended just a really good online webinar from AAAE in early November. It was called General Aviation Airport Management and Operations. It was a 3-day, all-day long webinar, and I'm still kind of unpacking from that, but it was just extremely helpful and continued to educate me on the numerous topics of airport management. We've been talking about sanitary sewer at the airport for the last couple of years as well. And I wanted to report that the city added a sewer study in December to kind of a scope of work with kind of some larger sanitary sewer projects going on throughout the city. And that contract was awarded. The results of that study maybe we'll have by our May meeting, but we were able to come up with enough funding to come up with a preliminary design and hopefully some construction plans that we can find either a federal or some bill funds to fund that work, that we'll be ready to go with that. So the results of that study will at least tell us numbers in terms of flow capacities and when we will need to build out sanitary sewer at the airport. And it also builds off some prior work that was done about 10 years ago. It was about this time a year ago that I think I reported to the board, the state of Kansas. Again, this is all coming out of COVID type federal funds. The state of Kansas has initiated a program called Building a Stronger Economy, or the BASE program, run through the Department of Commerce. We submitted a rather large grant application last year in the amount of $6.9 million. We did not get funding in that first round, but the state announced a second round of funding in the amount of $15 million for 2023. The first round grant applications automatically rolled over to the second round, and I updated our grant application with all the new information, since a year ago in terms of what the city is already doing with some of the projects we have going on at the airport. So again, if we get some award through that program, I'll have more to report at our May meeting as well. And finally, I got an email from SUHAC. Richard has been working with them in terms of Leadership Lawrence, getting some flights for the graduate of the Leadership Lawrence classes, and the date of April 20th has been set for that. We can talk more tonight on that program. And Richard and I have already talked a little bit, because we should have the terminal construction is planned to start April 10th, but shouldn't impact those Leadership Lawrence flights too much. And I think we can hopefully work around those. That concludes my report tonight. Sheriff?
Okay, thank you. Anybody have comments? All right. The next item then is the KU proposal, I believe, the marketing department.
Yes,
that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We have Lauren Summers here tonight. I'll see if I can get this pulled up a little better.
I can introduce myself while we work on that. My name is Summer Foster, and I'm the creative director at KU Marketing. And we were approached as a part of the renovation at the airport to see what we could do to add a KU presence into the airport, and went and toured it with Scott and came up with a couple of opportunities. Some of the things, if you'll go ahead and advance. Yeah, so we went and looked around and saw just a couple of places that we thought would be a really great ad, and sort of low cost and not a big, wouldn't require a big governance plan on our part. If you want to keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Scott, share your screen.
Oops, sorry.
You're sharing.
Can everyone see that online?
Yeah, we can see it, Scott.
Sorry about that, Lauren.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Some of the people that we estimate rolling through the airport that would enjoy a KU presence or benefit from it would be our athletic fans, alumni, legislators, donors, administration, and prospective athletes. I'm sure you guys have a much better sense than I do of who these people are or can add to that list, but this was sort of a top of mind group that we could come up with. And there's really 3 spaces that we were excited about, but there's 2 that I think that we can definitely assist you guys with. The first one would be when you walk off the tarmac, there's 2 doors that you can enter into the lobby of the airport. Directly across from those doors on the south wall are these 2 large sort of columns that are just blank walls right now. I think there might be some framed things on it. I've highlighted them here. Scott did a wonderful job of being my scale model for these photos.
A new career, Scott.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. And what we think would make a really big impact would be to do 2 vinyl wall wraps, 1 on either side, and then include a vertical monitor that would scroll KU messaging, brag points, and other information that we think would be pertinent. If being a monitor, there would be opportunities for the airport to add your guys' information in there. And we'd be open to that. And from a governance perspective, this is something that we could update quarterly or biannually. This is not a heavy lift for our office. We shoot all of these images ourselves and write the copy and do the graphics. So it would all come directly from us. We love our alma mater, and I feel like the lofty language speaks really well to not only the people coming through the airport, but also to the act of flying. And so I think that there's an opportunity here to do, rather than, I didn't want to busy up the sky space. I didn't want to include some birds or anything that would have or clouds that would look like thunder or anything that would have a negative impact for this crew. So that's what I thought would be a good spot to have those large letters that kind of speak to KU and to our alumni base. We could do those as a part of a vinyl wrap, or we could also do those in 3 dimensions. I have gotten, we're doing some similar work to some other buildings and hallways and campus. So I do have a loose quote. Just the vinyl for these type of applications would be about $1,200 per. So you'd have 2 in this space. That would not include the monitors. Just to give you a sense of kind of how large of an impact we can have with a low cost.
Are these plans to be permanent or seasonal or?
I think the wall wraps would be permanent in regards to that would be something that we could update every 5 years, every 10 years as we feel like they start to look dated. Depending upon the quality of wrap you get, that's how long the ink colors and everything keep from fading. And, but things just start to, styles change and looks change and the KU brand changes. So I could see this would be something that could last 5 years. Up to 10.
So the wrap itself, you don't see changing like fall or spring to?
No, it would be probably permanently attached to the wall, but all of the graphics on the monitors we could update to seasonal graphics to hit brag points like our athletics. So for national championships, we love to highlight our Rhodes Scholars when we get one of those. And lots of opportunities there that we could refresh.
Would this be funded by KU or joint funding? Would this be?
I don't have any information on that.
I think we need to talk about that at some point.
That might be a Scott question.
Yeah, okay.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Kind of another updated one. I know that in one of the drawings, there was another monitor, I think on a wall adjacent to that. And so maybe, as a part of this plan, we'd want to talk about either consolidating those or seeing, you don't need to have a monitor on every single wall. There's quite a few already being put into the new space. But this would kind of give you more of a pulled back look at the opportunity without being distracted by all the paint colors and wall things that are going to change.
I don't understand where that is. Explain that to me.
That's the south wall.
That's the south wall.
And so those are the main doors into the parking lot, like if you are inside the building.
That's what we just looked at.
Oh, okay. That's the size. I'm sorry. I didn't understand the scale. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
These would just be some examples of some of the things that we could put on the monitors. They would range from campus beauty to exalting our research, and academics, to definitely we would want to hit on our athletics for this group.
How frequently can they update that for, let's say, recruiting purposes?
I think we could negotiate possibly doing that by request. I think quarterly is what we originally discussed and found reasonable, but this isn't a big deal for us and we want to help you guys. I guess it helps us too, right? Here's just some more examples of campus beauty, athletics, research. One of our copywriters did do some beautiful work that I didn't put on these slides, but I love the lofty language that we can use in regards to like forging Kansas excellence since 1865. From a hill in Kansas, we changed the world, those types of inspirational messages. Here's some more just sort of highlighting our flagship campus. And then the second opportunity that we discussed that we thought would work really well for you guys is there was just miles and miles of fence wrap. And we think that we can narrow that down to the fence just sort of on either side of the building and help frame that in. There's an example of one of it. Go ahead and keep scrolling. We think this is an opportunity to do something really big and really bold. That way you can see it from the tarmac. You can see it from the air. You can see it as you approach the airport coming down the drive, that this lends that excitement and generates that, oh my God, I'm here, and we think that people that are traveling here have such a great sense of anticipation. They're coming here for a thing. And it's just a really nice tone to start that and begin all of that work with the brand. They're seeing the Jayhawk, they're seeing the athletic flag, they're seeing our chant, and another view of our campus. We think that this would be a low lift to maintain and would do a beautiful job of framing in your building.
I think the artwork's great. I wonder about this, if there's any security issue. Visibility into the airport so that would need to be a question I would want to have answered for sure.
Absolutely.
What's the update refresh rate on those? Things are on the side.
I'd have to look into it.
Okay. But the idea would be permanent and then updated as needed.
Yes. There was another opportunity that we discussed with Scott that I really wanted to make work. He talked about how you need to add a shade to the large window that faces the tarmac. And then on the other side of it, we had discussed his desire to get like a big fiberglass Jayhawk and create this amazing spot for selfies as people get off their planes and walk towards the building. And I looked into it. Unfortunately, it is not within my power to get you guys a giant fiberglass Jayhawk. I tried, and if you can figure out how to do it, definitely let me know because I want that. But what I do recommend is, one of our traditions is the confetti toss. And I think that in that space, you can add a black and white photo to that shade, still creating that shade space, but also creating a backdrop of one of our traditions, and adding that excitement, that fan experience, and introducing to people that it's just as soon as they get off the plane to what they can expect when they come to KU.
Is that permanently mounted on how's that work on the glass?
It would be, so for the type of shade that you can add to existing glass, it would be a vinyl or an adhesive.
Okay, from the lobby, can you see the apron and the airplanes that are out there?
Yes. So what would be white would be clear.
And we can do it is clear, but what is dark there would not be?
It would be a darker shade and we can adjust the tones of that. So there's no reason for it to be as dark as
It'd be
it's
similar to what you see on the buses, right? Like on the windows of the buses.
Exactly.
So from the inside, you can see out, but the outside looks like a solid color or solid image.
So from the inside, we wouldn't see this, but it would only be from the outside that we would see it.
It would be shaded and you would see it, but not as clearly as you would from the other side. You'd be able to see through it from the inside.
So I guess the question is people come to the airport to watch aircraft
they do
land and watch people arrive, the windows will still have plenty of visibility and there's even some wildlife that comes in and out of, you see some hawks and things flying. But as people see and watch things happening on the ramp, and they'll still be able to see all the activities but when you're coming from the outside in, you'll see the image.
That's something we definitely want to work with the details on a vendor for and make sure that we got the percentages of those shades the way they need to be to provide the shade you're looking for, but also to increase the visibility. And we can also choose photos that would allow more space if that is a concern.
I think it is. Okay,
And that's it.
okay, comments?
Nice work.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Clearly a very talented team over there.
Yeah, you got a great bunch over there. Sounds like the writer's job too. Okay, comments?
Yeah, this is Ron Renz. Overall, I like the idea. I think it's really great. A couple of comments. I don't like the graphics on the big window looking out to the airport. I think that would really detract from people wanting to see airplanes. And even though it's going to be shaded, it's not that great. We got airplanes coming in at night. People like to see their people coming in with airplanes, and so I don't like that idea. I like all the other ideas. I think they're really good. The only other comment I've got is have you looked at how this coordinates with the terminal upgrade plan that we're doing? Because I know the walls and ceilings and columns and stuff is all changing. So hopefully you've thought that into consideration.
Actually, I did. Scott did forward me the plans to change the inside facade, and this would not interfere with that. It actually would work a lot better since you're going to be flattening out some of those spaces on the adjoining walls. This would make for a nice strong column going up for these collages.
You may come to the podium.
I do?
Yeah, so everyone online can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just a thought. I'm probably the biggest KU supporter you're going to get. I don't know if you can get enough Jayhawk out there, but I would, along with the window question about the fencing, because people drive up and they sit out there in their car and they eat or whatever. They want to see the car or the airplanes on the ramp. I just got concerned that we're putting a privacy fence up of such in that area. Now, maybe we put it somewhere else because we do have thousands of acres out there with fencing around it, but I'm not sure that'd be the right place if people want to sit in the parking lot and see, or come up and see if there are planes on the ramp, or whatever. Just a thought.
We do have that picnic table between the maintenance hangar and the terminal building that people like to sit at, eat lunch and watch aircraft, which the fence wrap may interfere with it.
Does anybody have any feeling about maybe including, I know, Scott, you may have talked to the people at Haskell. We do have another university here in town and other things that might need to be highlighted at the airport. So I think I'd like to, cogitate a little bit on this and
Sure.
work on it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with some of those points that, it'd be nice to include Haskell for the wall hangings, for the wall art.
Mhm.
I think it'd be a good idea to have something more aviation centered, kind of concentrating on KU's contributions to aviation and that sort of thing, to kind of give it an airport feel more than, a KU feel. And I also don't like the idea of having the window obscured by a picture. And I like the idea, if you can get a fiberglass Jayhawk, it'd be a great place to take selfies, and that would establish a KU presence there in the terminal.
I think it's a big gateway, and I've never seen any study, but I think a majority of the people flying in commercial or flying in bigger aircraft to the Lawrence Airport are related with the university.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a welcome mat, I've flown into other towns that have really had big announcement of their universities and their local activities, that having some big pictures, like I think it'd be incredible to locate a fiberglass Jayhawk to put out there and just have a welcome mat, because we still have a lot of the sports teams fly in, and as they come into the airport, or a lot of the announcers for ESPN things or different sporting events come in through there. So, like Dick Vitale and a lot of those guys, they fly in and come through that terminal building. So it'd be neat to have the photographs and the welcome to announce people, yeah, you're in Lawrence, Kansas. So
Thank you.
I think that type of artwork is a long time coming.
This also puts us on par with other universities that have
Okay,
Yeah.
athletic programs that are on that same scale. I know the University of Ohio State, or the Ohio State University has a really forward university on a public property. So I love the idea. The fence idea, depending on how translucent it is, I think would be awesome. I could see where potentially coaches would want to take some hold of some of this from the different universities, but I don't know. I think it's super cool. One of the things I got to sit with Scott on the board, and the question I asked is, do you know that you're in Lawrence, Kansas, or in the middle of nowhere, USA? And that would answer that question immediately when you get on the ground. So it's pretty cool.
Looks like we have a couple people online. Larry Kellogg, you want to comment on this item?
There we go. I got it unmuted. Yeah, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents worth in. Larry Kellogg, ALPA ASN, and also an owner and tenant. I think you should try very hard to protect the view from that window looking out on the ramp. I think it's a great architectural statement because of its size and height. And it, as everyone else, as there are a lot of other people have said, you're there to look at airplanes at that point in time, or to meet people or see what's going on out on the ramp. So I think you'd want to be careful about obstructing that view any. The other thing I'd like to say is to, kind of support the comments that said, don't forget about Haskell. When you're going to do fence wraps, or you're going to do interior decorating ideas, I think you should make sure that Haskell is represented in that as well.
Okay. Is there anybody else want to comment?
Got one here.
Greg Gardner.
Greg Gardner, do you have a sign as they enter that says, "Welcome to Lawrence, home of the University of Kansas and Haskell University"?
Nope.
Something like that?
There is a little thing on the outside of the terminal. I don't have a picture of it that does have, it has the elevation of the airport. It does have a Jayhawk and a Haskell Indian on it, but that's about it that I can think of at the airport.
Yeah,
But not really on the
when you
ramp.
get off the airplanes and walk towards.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you, Lauren. I think the action chair tonight is just to receive this presentation and then to provide a recommendation to staff on next steps on this.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do is maybe have another meeting about this with whoever is interested, and then make a recommendation to the board. Is May soon enough, or do we need to do it sooner, Scott?
When does Andy need it?
Yeah.
The thing about these graphics is, this is something we could add really at any time. It's not tied to the construction of the terminal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
How about the wiring for the monitors?
yeah.
That's something that we could possibly work in to the construction schedule. But one of the things I mentioned to Lauren is we also have, I don't have a good visual of it. We have several large monitors going up with the project, not on these walls, but on the east and west walls, and in the pilot's lounge, some rather large viewing monitors that we could also incorporate, information from, Haskell University or the University of Kansas. We just haven't had time to discuss any programming for those monitors with the project. So that's another possibility.
Okay, so do I have any volunteers for another 2 people on the board to have a?
I'll vote.
Okay, Jim and David. Okay, yeah, I bet you would. Okay.
One
David,
question,
David.
Scott, is since construction's starting shortly, if this is going to be something that the monitors are going to be wired in there, could it be a consensus tonight that this body recommends pre-wiring that for the monitors with the graphics and everything to be decided later, so that those welcome monitors can be pre-wired while they're doing construction? And that way, if things move forward, then they are. But even just putting monitors there, whether it's KU or the Chamber of Commerce or whoever's supporting those monitors, yeah, that the monitors are there to welcome people, because I think it's a good idea to have the monitors there. And if we're going to put the wiring in there, it really should be done now rather than afterwards. And they can put the wrap up over those connections.
Scott, you're the only one.
Well, Kyle is here. I think that's something we could probably change order with the project versus maybe the other monitors. I mean, we don't want to have an overload of monitors in a relatively small terminal lobby, but that's a good idea. Probably, Richard, if we want to make sure that those changes are done with the project in terms of these two particular monitors, size and vertical layout on those two walls, now's a good probably time to do it.
So the squares that are on this, that are covering the stadium and the other side, is that where the monitors would be?
Yes.
And if they're wired there, the monitors can change at any time, whether it's huge, small, vertical, horizontal.
That's correct.
Okay, I guess we need a couple of motions then to form the subcommittee, right? And to fund or to make this change. So do I have a motion to make the committee of, will be me, Jim, and David, and we'll be working with Scott. So somebody make a motion.
I will make a motion that we form a subcommittee to further investigate the
Aesthetics.
the proposal put in front of us as far as the aesthetics and the
Do I have a second?
banners go.
I'll second.
Okay, Chris Coleman is seconded. Okay,
Do a roll call.
roll call. Okay, Richard,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
myself, I, David,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Tiffany. I think she said aye.
She did. Her mic's muted. She nodded yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. After the meeting, let's figure out when we can get together. Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you. That's
Thank you very much.
wonderful. Thanks. All right. Are we ready for item D3, I believe?
Yes, I've got a short staff report on that item, Chair, and then we'll
Okay.
turn it over to Brett Holt of Garver. Let me pull up that agenda item. So since our last meeting, a lot has happened. Let me tell you, staff jumped right on this recommendation of the CIP subcommittee to move forward with improvements to the T-Hangar Taxilanes. We immediately reached out to Garver and FAA staff to see if we could possibly use our bipartisan infrastructure law funds that have been allocated to our airport for this project. We had a meeting on December 1st with Garver City staff and FAA Central Region staff to discuss a possible schedule and see if we could push this forward in 2023. With a lot of, I would say, effort, we were able to convince FAA to, yes, let us go forward with that. And so we already had this project budgeted for design work in 2022. So we had funds already set aside. And on December 2nd, FAA notified the city that we would receive an amount of $599,580 of bill funds towards this project. We'll also be able to utilize our two Kansas Airport Improvement Program grants from 2021 and the total amount of $184,435 for this project as well. So we've got a good funding stream identified, and the FAA has given us a super aggressive schedule with this project. So we hit the ground running. They wanted an engineering agreement with Garver by December 9th, which city staff was able to accomplish. They wanted 30% design reports by January 6th, which Garver was able to accomplish. They wanted 90% engineering reports by last Friday. Again, Garver was able to accomplish. So we've hit all of our targets so far. We need to submit this to bid by the end of February, plan bid openings by the end of March, and get our grant applications to FAA by April 1st. I've had a couple questions in terms of, do you guys have a schedule for this project yet in terms of when taxi lanes are going to be closed or inaccessible? And we just don't have that level of detail yet because we don't haven't moved that far along in the project and don't have a contractor identified, but those are our next steps with the probably 100% plans and moving forward with this project. And tonight's action really for the board is just to review the plans, especially the construction safety and phasing plans, which I gave you hard copies on the DS for all the members here tonight. And Brett Holt from Garver is going to review those safety plans for us. And let's see if I can get that pulled up. Brett, are you still there?
Yep, I am here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect.
Jump forward to those. Well, I've got, I think, the whole package posted, Brett. So you can start talking or share your screen if you want.
Let's see. Yeah, I should be able to do that here. Oh, it doesn't look like it'll let me share my screen. So moving to the 90% submittal, we kind of condensed this project down into 2 different phases. The intent there was to both limit the amount of closures for these T-hangars in this area, as well as limit the amount of mobilizations the contractor would have to have on this project. The 2 phases we've got shown seem to do that pretty well. I know there were some comments or questions about tenant access. And Scott, so this is what Scott's got on his screen was what we had at the 30% design, and the red and the green have now been combined into the first phase. So the intent here is the red area is going to be a 3-inch mill and overlay, and we will utilize those millings to build up the subgrade for taxi lanes A and B. We know under taxi lane A, we've got some really poor subgrade that we'll have to remove. I believe it's to a depth of 36 inches. So we'll just use those millings to build that up. So looking at that, that's kind of how we, or that was part of what kind of went into developing these phasing plans. And I know there were a couple of tenant comments, one being about access to these T-hangars during the construction for aircraft maintenance and whatnot. And we will, we'll be able to accommodate access throughout construction to the hangars. And there was another comment about aircraft getting access to the taxiway. And with this phasing setup we have, there will be during phase 2, when we're going to be coming through and reconstructing taxi lane A, as well as getting everything paved, that there won't really be access to taxiway C. Right now, we're kind of looking at about 20 days for that. But during phase 1, which is shown in red and green on the sheet Scott's got up there, we'll still have access for the southern T-hangars. That red area will be a milled surface. So as long as we can tug aircraft to taxi lane A, they'll still have access to taxiway C throughout phase 1. So it'll really just be during that phase 2, which is that purple area shown there, that we won't have access to taxiway C. And I think there was discussion potentially about a temporary taxiway coming around the south side of those 2 hangars, and then up to the north on the west side and connecting it in taxiway C. And I kind of looked at that initially. We do have, it's tight, but we would have the clearance between the southern hangars and the fence line. But you can kind of see those white dots to the south of the pavement. Those are valves for the water line that runs through there. So those would restrict our traffic through there. The other issue we have with that is just getting a stand of grass I don't think would be possible by the time we get to construction. And I know the mats are pretty pricey to be able to hold aircraft through that area. And I think that the most important thing is with a project duration, I think we've got it shortened to 37 days overall. I don't see that as something the FAA would be willing to pay for. So it would likely have to come out as city costs. I haven't done a kind of in-depth in the weeds cost estimate on what that would be, but my guess was with the additional mobilization, it'd probably be somewhere around $100,000 to get that done, with the exception of that southern portion, since we've got those valves there. Let's see. I think
you want to discuss the drainage improvements that we have planned too.
Yeah, I can flip to those sheets real quick. So really what we looking out there, I know there's some drainage issues along, and Scott, I don't think this set will have that in there yet, the 30%. But along the western side of T-Hangar A there, I know there's some drainage issues on that northwest side. So as we're widening Taxilane B, we'll also be dropping that profile to meet the longitudinal grade criteria, which should push water away from that building more efficiently than it does now, I guess. So we won't have the drainage issues on that northwest side of that hangar. We're also going to be those PVC pipes there that Scott's pointing at. We're going to increase the size of those. Right now they're 4 inches and in pretty bad shape. So we'll be bumping those up to 6 inches. So with the additional grade and the increased pipe size there, we should get rid of all the drainage issues we're having on the west side of that hangar. Moving to the east side, right there kind of by Eurotech, we know there's some more drainage issues. So we're going to regrade that area and add a pipe that crosses under Taxilane A and ties into the structure south of the T-Hangar there. So that should help alleviate that as well. Those are really the big two drainage improvements there. Replacing these pipes up closer to Taxiway C, those are in fairly bad shape. I know one of them was, honestly, I couldn't even find it. I had to dig around a little bit, so it was completely covered and crushed in. So once we get those opened back up, it should allow for that free flow of water to get back out to that structure and over to the entrance road.
Brett, is there some planned grading out in this area too?
Yes, yep. There's that existing swale that kind of runs along the western edge of Taxilane B right now. So that'll get pushed out further to the west. So it'll look essentially like it does now, just moved out 30 feet or so to the west. So really the drainage patterns will stay the same. We'll just get them improved with the new pipes and increased grades in some of those areas.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
One question is on the drain where it goes underneath Taxiway B. There were some sinkholes and some water that seemed to be leaching from under other areas. Will that be addressed with the repairs there?
Brett, you want to talk about that if you heard Richard's question?
Yeah, and I believe, are you talking about kind of in that area where that existing CMP goes underneath Taxilane B?
Correct. Yeah, the pipe was new, but there was moisture leaching around it that was eroding and creating sinkholes outside of that drain pipe.
Yes. Yep. So that area will be taken up with the reconstruction of Taxilane B, and we're going to replace that CMP with a reinforced concrete pipe, making sure we get the correct bedding and everything in there. So this subgrade will be reworked. I did notice looking at it in the field, it looked like a lot of it might actually be surface runoff just based on the erosion around the pipe coming from the edge of the pavement. But since we are reconstructing that area there, we should eliminate that.
See.
Brett, I was going to get down to the 90% drawings, if there was any updates there. Sorry, I've got the whole agenda packet open.
Yeah, this is kind of a brief overview of the eligible and ineligible areas based on FAA's criteria.
Can you talk about what that means, Brett?
Yeah, so basically the FAA's rules are they won't pay for really anything outside of the required taxi lane width, and they won't pay for, or they won't participate in any of the drive lanes up to the hangar doors. So what you see in blue there is the ineligible portion that would require potentially that KDOT funding. And then the red is what the FAA will actually cover as part of this project.
Thank you.
Other comments? Doug? Are we ready for Doug?
This is
Go ahead.
This is Ron Renz. I've got a comment on the schedule. Just two questions. One, is the total project 37 days or just the period when there's not going to be access to the hangars 37 days?
The entire project is 37 days. There will be tenant access to the hangars throughout the project. It's really just that second phase where everything's going to kind of be torn up before they get ready to pave, that aircraft access won't be available.
How many days is that, Brett?
We're kind of anticipating around 20 for that right now. My hope is they can get that shortened up once they get out there. Should have a majority of the earthwork done during phase one. So once they get everything torn up for taxi lane A, it shouldn't take a whole lot for them to get that built back up and then just get everything paved in one swoop.
Is there any way to split up the taxi lane A and taxi lane B, I guess, so that you could shorten the time when there would not be access to the hangars by the tenants?
There is. What you get into then is kind of the time between their paving operations and how long they are willing to keep their paving equipment out there and not have to remob it or anything. So that's why we have it set up the way it is. Once we get a contractor, that is something we can kind of work with them and depending on what they've got on their schedule, if they're willing to let their equipment sit out there while they're waiting to get to a new phase, there is potential for that.
Just thought I'd raise that because for the people that got their airplanes in there, 20 days for non-access is quite a long time. Mm-hmm. If you can shorten that, that'd really be good for them.
I would like to throw out that I've also talked to Brian Pope with Lifestar, Ron, and they still have some space in the hangar that you occupy that they'd be willing to work with our tenants and during this project. So we could probably get, Ron, you would probably know best how many airplanes could fit on in that portion of the hangar.
Yeah, they'd probably be able to get about at most three, probably two pretty easily without any impact to the Lifestar operation. So we can work. That's a good suggestion for those folks. And I don't know, Lloyd may have some space in his hangars for them as well. So.
Okay, I think Doug's turn now.
Hi, greetings everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Doug Tillman. I'm a tenant of Hangar Charlie 8, and I have a Vans RV home-built airplane in there. And I've read the plan and looked at the 90% design plan. And my initial reaction was looking at the 42-day schedule. That looked optimistic. The 35-day schedule looks to me wildly optimistic, assuming that there won't be any weather delays, equipment delays, problems that crop up with underground utilities and things like that. It is a kind of a complex project. And once you remove that asphalt, you're kind of stuck, and you're stuck until it's repaved. I appreciate the idea that we might be able to get planes in and out of there even after taxiway Charlie is milled 3 inches down. I don't think you'd be able to get my plane through there because there's a very small gap. Mine's on the in between Bravo and Charlie. There's a concrete drainage channel that runs down the center of that would not be taken out. There isn't enough room between the concrete pads and that channel to taxi through there, I don't believe. And also just getting down off of the concrete pad outside the hangar onto the area that's been milled and then back up again on the toward hangar or taxiway Alpha would probably be a problem, even if you're tugging the plane. I just don't know whether that would work or not. So my proposal that I sent all of you was the idea of a grass temporary taxiway getting around the south and west sides of B and C, so that area around B and C could possibly be milled and repaved as a separate phase, either during or before or after the part north of there around a hangar is being done with all the underground work. Because there's really, as I understand it, no underground work being done around a hangar's B and C except for that electrical vault on the north side of Charlie.
As far as I know, yeah.
Correct.
Correct, Scott?
So I just hope that the schedule is realistic, and if it's done in 35 days for the repaving part, and I think the other 2 days is just for the marking later on, that's not too bad. 7 weeks, you could probably live with that. And again, the impact depends on when it happens. If it goes longer than that, if it gets to be 2 months or longer than that, that is going to be a significant problem for hangar tenants who need to use their planes on a regular basis. I did walk that route that I'm proposing for a grass taxiway yesterday, and he's right, it would not be that easy. A lot of it you could probably taxi over right now. I could probably get my plane out around there. Some of it is a drainage area and would need to be built up, solidified. And then there's a ditch on the south side of taxiway Charlie that is too deep and would need to have a tube and a ramp put over that. There's also a fire hydrant. I don't know if you can see it on the map there. There's a fire hydrant about 30 feet south of the southwest corner of that area around building Bravo. And I could taxi through there. My wingspan is about 24 feet. Others might have a problem with that. So there are issues. The two the valve enclosures that he mentioned are far enough east that I don't think they'd be in the way for coming around the east side of Charlie Hangar. So I guess I'm proposing a couple of things that some consideration be given to that grass taxiway and the rephasing that would be necessary for the areas around B and C to be milled and then repaved within a short a period as possible, so that we can still get our planes out around the south. I'm not proposing that the city spend $100,000 to do that. I'm not sure it's worth doing that. I was thinking it might be something that we could do with a minimum of expense. And so I think it's worth looking at, but it may not be feasible. I don't know. I'm very glad that this is getting done. I'm really happy about it. I don't want to do anything to delay the process. Let's get this construction done and out of the way and have great paving again. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody?
I just had one comment, Doug. I do like your drawing with the taxiway going from B hangars or toward taxiway Delta. I think that would be kind of handy to have in the future, but yeah, I think to even put a temporary one in would be kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But I like that drawing.
Thanks for the work, Doug.
Doug, obviously, we've passed this on to Brett Holt, our design engineers, and we'll take a further look at this and see what we can do.
Okay. I guess that's all that we need to do on there. Is that correct?
I think we've got the feedback we need, Chair, and we're.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Is anybody outside waiting to say anything?
Is anybody online waiting to comment?
Okay.
I just have one question, Scott, is once the construction dates are set, will a formal notice go out to all the T-Hangar tenants so that they'll know if they do need to move their aircraft or relocate it, they can, and kind of an idea of when they'll be interrupted?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. As soon as we have a tight construction schedule, we'll get that pushed out to all the T-Hangar tenants, and we'll have a pre-construction meeting that will include the T-Hangar tenants for sure, so that everyone is on the same page and is fully aware of the project, who the contractor will be, for sure.
Okay, I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. Is Lloyd still here? No. He is still there. I didn't see you, Lloyd. Is Hetrick going to be able to help people move airplanes if they need to be moved during this construction phase? Because I know there's going to be a lip, isn't there, when they start the milling, right? So
are we talking about when it's just milled up and you don't want taxi?
Just need towing them for people.
I can't imagine that would be a very much call for that. So yeah, we try to accommodate, and we'll just have to look at what we've got for hangar space as well. If we can get 2 or 3 people that need to be
and we can't arrange for tie downs on the ramp, right? If people want to
worst case
that way. And I know that when we were working on 1533 and it was closed for what, week or 10 days or whatever.
Yeah.
I just checked around at other airports to see if they had community hangar or hangar space, and they did.
Yeah.
So Ottawa did, and maybe there are a couple other airports around that might, if you really feel like you need it during the schedule. So
I think a lot will come out when we have the dates. People know when they need to fly and stuff, but yeah, we'd open up, see what we could accommodate and go that route.
All right, because we'll probably need some help.
And I did fail to mention the city, of course, would rebate or adjust our billing in 3rd or 4th quarter billing cycles for any time that the project is impacting the T-Hangar tenants.
Okay. Scott? I guess
is there a comment online? We can't quite hear someone speaking.
Scott, this is Larry Kellogg again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you and Brett both for getting this moved up to where it's actually happening instead of just being a figment of our imagination. This is a project that's really needed to be done for quite some time, and I think it's great that you're putting this effort into it.
I appreciate that, Larry. Certainly there's a lot of funding in my mind floating around out there with this bill legislation. The city has allocated $295,000 at least annually for the next 5 years. So this project is eating just 2 years of that, and there's more to come.
It's a great thing, and keep up the good work. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'll just make one more comment. I would like to thank the committee that made the recommendations on that. That's Tiffany and Richard worked hard to get the recommendations going so that we could get this moving. So thanks a lot. Okay, next is
Jason. Pronounce your last name for me again. Lawlicker from Southern Star Natural Gas Company. They've got quite a project going on citywide, and they're going to walk us through a presentation on their project.
Thank you for allowing Southern Star to present our upcoming 2023 project to replace our existing 4-inch EV line with a new 16-inch EVA line. Before I get started, I wanted to introduce some of the people from Southern Star who have helped to get this project off the ground and have been instrumental in getting this project to where it is today. Bob Bath, our leader of land services. John James, our leader of design engineering. Evan Emery is our design engineer that's running this project. And of course, myself, which is the local land representative here in Lawrence. These 4 people, as well as a large team of our folks, have been designing, reviewing, reaching out to private landowners, municipalities, and Douglas County to get this project to where it stands today. Southern Star currently operates an existing 4-inch line known as our EV line. The original line was put in approximately 1947. This line begins at our setting right off of Highway 24 and 32, goes west to 59 Highway, and then turns north. This line currently provides gas service to Midland Grain Elevator, as well as domestic customers along the line. The Lawrence Energy Center, which we currently serve gas to and we'll discuss later, has requested additional gas capacity to be serviced to them. They're looking for more gas in order to be able to use more green technology in the future, solar and wind, as well as decrease their usage of coal in order to produce electricity for our community, a greener approach per se for the Lawrence community. Our existing feed into the Evergy plant is an 8-inch line known to us as our ESA line. This line was built in the late 1920s in Western Lawrence, which at the time was mainly agricultural and rural areas. As the population of Lawrence has increased, today this line lays in neighborhoods, commercial developments, and churches. With the age of this line and where it lays today, it makes it impossible to put a new 16-inch line back into the existing footprint. We'd also not want to put it back into heavily populated areas of Lawrence. Thus, the plan was formed to abandon the ESA line in West Lawrence and review ideas about laying a lateral line in a more rural area to increase our capacity to the Lawrence Energy Center. We are proposing to design a 5.5-mile 16-inch lateral line known as our new EVA line. This line will start at Highway 2432 at our existing facility, run parallel with our existing EV line as much as possible to Highway 59, then continue west along 1900 Road, ultimately landing south of the Kansas River and then boring under the river and entering the Lawrence Energy Center property, being able to serve them more capacity. Presently, as you know, our existing EV line runs underneath the Lawrence Airport. Tonight, we are proposing via an HDD bore across the airport. This HDD bore will start and end on both the east and west sides of the airport, entering and exiting on private landowners and not affecting the airport's operation in any way during construction. Southern Star Engineering team has been working closely with our third-party engineering group to design this bore to meet all industry standards, to complete this bore, all doing so in the safest of manners. In our PowerPoint presentation tonight, we will show you the existing line EV specs as it was relayed in 2008, the lands affected that are owned by the city of Lawrence, and the HDD bore profile for the new EVA line. We also have a map of where our existing ESA line is in West Lawrence, so you can see how the retirement of this line will be beneficial to the city of Lawrence. As we scroll through this, if there are any questions throughout, please let me know. So what you're looking at today is where the EV line runs underneath the runways in the airport. This particular drawing was done back in approximately 2008. The city of Lawrence requested that we move this line further north or south. We agreed to do it, and this was the drawing that came out. So this shows you where EV is today underneath the Lawrence Airport. This particular drawing, this one doesn't have the airport on it. Due to a condemnation case for the Mud Creek levee, there are certain portions of City of Lawrence property that the easement would cross. The pipeline would not be on these properties, but the 66-foot wide easement would actually encumber some of the City of Lawrence's property there.
Up here along Mud Creek levee?
Correct. Correct. This would actually be underneath the City of Lawrence Airport. You can see the yellow dot on the very eastern side there. That's KU endowment property. We would obviously propose to them to start the bore there. We would go across the airport property underneath that. You see the bore profile drawing shows you how deep we would be underneath those runways and airport property. We would actually be deeper than what the existing EV line is today.
And how deep would you be, Jason?
Take a look here.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you going through bedrock in that area? Is that what I gleaned out of the larger description you sent?
Yeah, we did some geotechnical boring out there just to get some rock samples. Obviously didn't do it on the airport, but on the endowment property on both the east and west sides. We like rock. Okay, so rock's good for us. It helps with no more frac outs or anything like that. And we do believe that we will be in rock when we go underneath the airport.
Jason, what does HDD stand for?
Means a horizontal directional drill.
Okay, thank you. That's why I saw it on there.
No,
You know what it meant.
no problem.
Thanks.
Scott, to answer your question, I don't know if you can hear me. This is Evan Emery, the design engineer on the team. While Jason is preparing other documents, you asked how deep underneath the airport we're proposing to install our line. We would be approximately 100 feet deep within 6 inches. And under each of the active airports, we would maintain that 100-foot depth until we clear to where we either are ascending the bore or descending when we're actually putting the pipe in the ground.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.
This final picture shows, and you can only see it on there's a yellow dot just on the other side of that road that runs north-south there. That's where we would actually exit again on private landowner. Of course, we're going to be boring underneath all the roads. So this particular bore would be a longer bore for us, but it would kind of kill two birds with one stone by getting the road as well as the airport itself.
Like right here, Jason?
No, I think it's further back over closer to the road, further on the east side.
Oh, like
Scott, on that particular drawing, that where your cursor is, that's the site that Jason's referring to. That's approximately 1,400 to 1,500 feet west of the western fence line for the airport property.
Gotcha. And so with all the millings that come out of your boring, you'll obviously haul those off.
That's all taken care of in the actual boring process. So one of the reasons why we're kind of here today, not only to explain to you, we do obviously have an agreement with the City of Lawrence for the EV line underneath the airport. That particular agreement restrains us to a 4-inch line. And we tried to do some research, and I've talked to a few people at the City of Lawrence about why that particular diameter restriction was given to us at that time. Have been able to come up with not a real good answer. So the agreement that's in place right now would need to be amended. I did send to Scott, I did not put a part of this, just a general easement agreement that we would be looking for, that would eliminate that so that the 16-inch line could, go through there. Okay. I didn't know who would need to see that, but since I was dealing with the City of Lawrence itself, wanted to get that in your hands and, ultimately to the council and the powers that be on that.
Yeah, Jason, I'll be the primary point of contact on that aspect of it too. Part of my other hats is easement acquisition for the city. So I work with utility contractors daily on that. And we'll also need to get FAA review on the easement language. So there'll be some process with that as well. But I'll be your primary point of contact.
Perfect, Scott. So I think I've got one final drawing in here. This is, well, no, I've got two, but this one is actually the bore profile drawing specific to the bore across the airport. Okay. This is a engineered drawing, and I'm not an engineer. So if you have any questions, I'd refer them to Evan on the Zoom call.
I think with that pipe being 100 feet down below the runway surfaces, myself, I can't foresee any issues with the airport ever going that low. Most of our stuff's done pretty high up with, even if it's putting in new runway lights, taxi lights, or if we extend the runways, or I don't see any impeding there as long as the easement agreement and the FAA is agreed with the line, which I don't see any structural reason not to.
Okay.
I have a question about operations. When you decommission the 4-inch line and commission the 16-inch line, what is the procedure? Is there a protocol that would require closing the airport for a few hours while you do that, or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We don't believe from our engineering people that there would be any effect on
at all
airport operation.
Because I can't see how it would bother us at all while you're doing work, since it's outside the airport property.
Correct.
I just didn't know whether when you decommission and activate the
4-inch line that's currently there right now, it will be cut and capped at roads.
Filled up with grout or
okay. Underneath the roads, it will be filled with grout so that it will never be able to be used again. It will be abandoned in place. We found that that's obviously a more environmental way to do it than try to rip it out and cause a whole heck of a lot more issues.
How deep is the 4-inch line now?
I don't know. Do you know how deep it is, Bob?
I know when they did the relocation in 2008, it was shallow enough that it had to be relocated because the extension of the runway and the taxiways to get to the runway 19. But
yeah, that's
at that time what the depth was. So.
I was going to say, because I think at that time it was only 16 inches down that there was some interference where now going from 16 inches to 100 feet, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like Jason said, it's been there for a while. So the whole time erosion and things start to get shallow.
All right. Hey, Doug. Question.
Yeah, if you would come to the microphone there, Doug, so the people online can hear you.
Does the boring process through bedrock like that ever cause enough vibration that it causes a problem with paving on the surface?
I'll kind of throw that over to Evan. Evan, did you hear the question?
I did. It's a good question. It should not. I assume you're concerned about either finishing paving or leveling or compaction. The depths that we are going and the rate at which we're removing material is carefully designed by specialty contractors, not general contractors. We don't remove the drill profile all at once. We drill a pilot hole similar to general home construction, and then we make several reaming passes to gradually remove material to a designed and industry standard diameter so that we can feed pipe into the profile. But long answer short, we shouldn't be disturbing any sort of surface activities or surface, activities that you're preparing during that time if the schedules should overlap.
What's the timeline for drilling?
Right now, we're currently in the process of land acquisition, meeting with the landowners throughout the line. We would like to do our FERC filing in April 11th. That would give us, those usually take around 60 to 70 days to get passed. If everything goes well in the way that we anticipate it to, construction would be somewhere middle of June, first part of July of this year. We would hopefully finalize by end of the year. This is just one final slide I wanted to add in here. This is our current ESA line that feeds the Evergy power plant. I said earlier, this one was built in the late 20s. You can see now today that it's in quite a few neighborhoods, developments. It starts right behind Hy-Vee there, over there on 23rd and Clinton, and runs all the way up to, Evergy. So putting in a 16-inch line right there would be extremely difficult, and we'd have a lot of upset landowners out there, with that. So, we feel like by retiring this particular line, it's going to have a good effect on the community. I know the guys over Monterey Way that see the pipeline markers out there are going to absolutely really like that fact.
Exactly.
Yes, this one will completely get shut down and retired. Now on this one, just for city purposes, and I'm working with Steve Halstrom, I'm the city engineer, as far as cutting and capping on, underneath all the roads, grouting underneath the roads and setting up traffic control plans and whatnot. This particular part of the project will not occur until after the new line obviously gets in and is flowing.
So this line marked in red, is it 16 inches deep? Or is it?
No, that one's, that one probably varies in depth. It could be 16 inches in certain parts. It could be 3 feet in other parts. Really depth is a question that we get all the time. And we don't have a software that tells us exactly what depth it is. We usually send one of our operations crews out to locate it, or if we have to pothole it or, probe it or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So.
Sobering. 16 inches, yeah.
Ron, do you have a question? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just a general comment. I think this is a really good project for Lawrence. From a green energy standpoint, I like it. From the airport impact, I think there's going to be very minimal, which is good. On the north end of the airport, that's really good. I think we all know that there's always the potential possibility that you have some problems when you're drilling. And if that happens right underneath the runway, any agreement we make with the energy company, Scott, we should make sure that if that has to happen, that there's not going to be any impacts to runways in case they have a breakdown and they got to dig down to recover their drilling thing. The likelihood of that happening, we realize, is very low. But I think we all realize it's not zero. And so we just ought to make sure the airport's protected in case something like that might happen.
Okay. More, Jason?
No, just, my only question, I'm kind of new to this, just from this point forward, work with Scott in regards to the easement, and
that other question about the increased line size, right?
Yes, and I'll get with Scott. I think I may have sent that agreement over to Steve Halstrom initially, but if not, we can definitely get a copy of that for him and get that reviewed.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Board?
Okay.
Anybody? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is the 5-year capital improvement plan. Scott,
Yeah,
right?
let me pull that memo up and we'll get to that item. As you guys know, annually we update our FAA CIP list. This is different from the city's internal CIP capital improvement program. However, for budgeting purposes, we do try to mirror both the city CIP process and the FAA CIP process as well. So we didn't have a lot of changes this year. And last year's kind of 5-year plan. So our plan kind of is broken down into 1 to 5 year periods, 6 to 10 year periods, and then 11 to 15 or, kind of super long-term projects. So last year, this was kind of our top priority list of projects. We have updated the cost that we're projecting. Thank you, gentlemen. Through our engineering firm Garver to make sure that FAA, it's really kind of a budgeting item for FAA in terms of updating our data sheets so that they can properly budget for these projects in terms of the FAA Airport Improvement Program as well. One thing that we did add in April of 2022 to the taxiway A upgrades was installation of LED lighting because Garver staff thought that that would be a good time to do that. And those costs were estimated to be $584,000 additional dollars to do that upgrade. So we added that to kind of the short-term list of projects. Last year, we had added a sanitary sewer study because we knew how important that was, and we thought we could get possibly some FAA funding for that. It's okay to kind of remove that study because the city is funding that on our own dime now. So that has been removed from the 5-year list. I've tried this year to really kind of mirror the city's adopted CIP program because we have a better feel for what projects are kind of in play right now with FAA, and we certainly have the adopted city's CIP plan. I kind of updated how we present this information in terms of the federal fiscal years we're looking at, because this year's discussion will be for FAA will be their 20 to 24 to 2028 cycle versus putting a date on these items, which I think is confusing. You know, I've seen those on these memos in the past, and I think that's misleading because as Kyle and I discovered when we went to visit with FAA staff in April of last year, along with Garver staff, we came out of that meeting thinking that we would have a couple projects funded in the 2023 cycle. But that wasn't the case. They didn't fare well, according to kind of feedback from FAA and Garver in terms of all the other central region projects. So I think a better description is to just kind of simply have those in the 5-year short-term list. These are the projects in play. And as I said in my memo, staff, we're going to take direction from you guys in terms of this CIP subcommittee as to what to really push with FAA staff in terms of the next projects. Certainly, we had your recommendation from the November meeting that the taxiway A and apron rehab are at the top of the to-do list, and we all agree that those are the very next things that need to be improved. A couple other changes to talk about here. The taxi lane rehab project, obviously we're moving forward in that, so we can take that off of our short-term list. Reconstruction of the airport access road, I still have that shown. It's also on the city's CIP list. Hopefully we can find the funding to be able to remove that this year too, if we can get a second round of this ATP program grant or be able to apply our NPE funds from the past couple years of that. I still have this project listed. This was to build out the taxi lane to serve the new Hetrick hangars that have been proposed. Let's see how we have those costs estimated. Those were kind of cost estimates from a year ago, as we have heard from that development group in 2022. That project is expanded. The length of that taxiway will be expanded, so we'll need to get some updated numbers from Dream Air as that project moves forward this year, and we can update the data sheets really at any time on that. Finally, I've added an addendum to our discussion tonight. And I'll just read it. In early January, I spoke with representatives of Hetrick Air Services Ownership Group about a project to expand the length of runway 1533 at the airport. That group has been in discussions with the University of Kansas and with our federal legislative delegation about seeking additional assistance and support for this expansion, which would allow for larger charter aircraft to land at the Lawrence Regional Airport. We discussed how this project has been in our short-term priority list, but we removed it in 2021. This was kind of right about the time Amanda Saheen was still airport manager, but I was starting to sit in on your meetings because of the fact that we had all these short-term improvements that needed to be worked on, and FAA, just the Central Region staff, just was not going to support keeping that in the short-term list. It's still out there in our longer-term priority time frame, so that data sheet is still out there. So I discussed with the ownership group that, instead of seeking FAA CIP funds for that expansion, what we really needed to talk about is what was previously known as a congressional earmark. They like to call them today congressionally directed spending authorizations. And those are back in play now in terms of Congress. We've had some initial discussions with KDOT Aviation and Garver Engineering about this project. And Garver believes that the initial step would be to do a feasibility study to indicate all the needed airport improvements that would be required to support such an expansion and updated costs. If federal support could be achieved for this project, this would likely free up a lot of our bill funds and federal CIP dollars to use towards some of our priority projects at the airport. Initial thoughts from Garver staff is that, we'd need to widen taxiway A probably to 50 feet to support larger aircraft size categories landing on the primary runway. We would really need to look at expansion of the apron, the strengthening of the apron, and we would need additional probably 5 to 6 inches of asphalt on the primary runway as well. And since this memo was put out to you guys, we had an initial meeting on Friday out at the airport with Lloyd, representatives of Hetrick Air Services, lots of key city staff, including the city manager, the director of our MSO, Melissa Sieben was there, Garver staff, and Bob Brock of KDOT Aviation to talk about this project and what it would mean for Lawrence. Bob Brock of KDOT was certainly supportive of the project, and they gave initial indications that they would be willing to study a feasibility study and get Garver moving on that, which could be done, relatively quickly, probably within a 30 to 60 day time frame. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys for discussion of the 5-year CIP.
How much runway are they looking to add?
That's a good question. We're looking at about additional 600 feet. So in the master plan that was completed in 2012, there's a couple different scenarios for how to do that on either the north or the south end of 1533. So those are things that Garver will look at with a feasibility study. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Was that in the master plan? I think the master plan was only to the south.
Only to the south.
And then just recently, the feasibility study came through within the last couple of years of the addition to the north, that the additional asphalt to the north would be a displaced threshold, which would be a lot cheaper as far as cost goes to expand the runway that way. Where going to the south, there'd be a lot more groundwork, and they'd have to relocate a lot of the instrument approach equipment, lighting, and things like that.
And Highway 40.
Well, not initially. To go to 6,000 feet, Highway 40 wouldn't have to be moved. If you go to 6,500 or 7,000 feet, then Highway 40 would need to be moved. And 7,000 feet going to the north or south would be the ultimate because the turnpike would be the elevation obstruction at that time.
Yeah.
But the displaced threshold is an option to look at. But I know with the aircraft that have been coming in and the concerns that I've heard, 6,000 feet is the number that they're looking for, which the 600 feet would take us over the 6,000 feet mark. But if we're going to do the runway extension to accept those aircraft, we really need to expand the ramp, which we've run out of space multiple times this year in parking aircraft for busy weekends. And then whatever the study would show as far as if we need the bigger ramp, we need the runway, the taxiway, get all those numbers together to make sure that it's done right. And I know there's concerns with more aircraft coming into the Lawrence Airport with the Panasonic plant being there, that maybe some of that traffic will come our way as well.
Scott, is any kind of ramp extension in this?
Yep, I have it right here in the memo.
Which one is it?
Clancy, that's something that Garver will look at. The ramp is in the longer 6 to 10 year time frame, which you can see in this chart here. Yeah.
What's the time frame we're looking at for this runway extension? Do we have any concept of that?
That's a good question. I think the time frame would be sooner rather than later. Certainly, if we got a federal earmark for the 2024 budget cycle, they would probably expect us to start expending funds in 2024, but we're just not that far along yet. I don't think.
That would mean spending money starting in October of this year? Is that
not probably this year? Probably 2024 at the earliest, I would think.
Okay.
But that's probably pretty optimistic. We had discussion on Friday about, the World Cup is coming to Kansas City, having our airport in a position to, accept possibly or host one of those World Cup teams in 2026 would be a pretty good goal. And that would be maybe something to shoot for as well.
I think being able to accommodate a lot more of the sports teams that fly in and out of Lawrence, because a lot of times the Jayhawk basketball team doesn't fly out of Lawrence; they fly out of out of Forbes or Kansas City because they're taking larger aircraft. That this may encourage a lot more of that activity and visiting teams to use our airport a lot more frequently.
Absolutely. Okay. Other comments?
Are we married to the 600 feet?
And it's
to the 600 feet.
What we are doing right now is gathering data from KU Athletics in terms of the types of aircraft they're using and project to use in the future. They gave us some initial aircraft data on Friday and passed that on to Garver. So I would say that that's still under discussion.
I think this is the idea phase to get everything that would be involved together and then kind of get an idea of budget.
7,500 is the mark that you're aiming for.
No, I don't think that's a feasible number.
If you're aiming for 7.3s coming in and out.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, what's the biggest airplane we're looking at?
Yeah, that versus a global or the G4 or something like that.
We've actually had 7.3 land at our airport already. The president of Columbia came in, but the taxi lane was too narrow. Its mains fit on it, but we had to have a guide vehicle guide them on the taxiway so that their mains stayed on the taxiway.
What I was after is I think we just need to carefully pick what we're after, because I think if you're at 600, you're talking still citations and Hawkers and Challengers. But
I think that's where
global line where you're going G5, GS 650s. We need 7,500 feet. So there's a big kick between medium class aircraft and wide body.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know the wide body is going to be feasible.
So
I agree. That's why I was like, we got to be careful when we're
are we looking at a potential extension at both ends of the airport, Scott? I mean, two separate extensions, one at each end.
That's
or a very long one at the south end, or how?
That's what Garver's feasibility study will look at.
Okay.
What are the options? What are the most cost-effective solutions? They'll look at the fleet mix in terms of what are the charters that we can potentially expect to see at Lawrence Regional Airport.
Do we have an index of who's coming in or a count on who's coming in?
We have that data.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions? Right. What action do we need, Scott?
Yep. This
Maybe
is Ron.
Ron, go.
Ron Renz again. My annual, every time the CIP comes up, safety input is the taxiway extension of taxiway Bravo to the end of runway 19. So you don't have to back taxi on 19 to get to the end. And I see it's again, not in the CIP, but I'm raising my safety hand again. That's we need to figure out how to do that at some point in time. And runway extension, I think it's a great idea. Longer runways are always better. We get the money. Let's figure out how to make it happen.
I think it's right here. It's in our CIP, Ron. It's just in the 6 to 10 year component.
Okay, well, that's good. I was looking for it. I just missed it. Just want to make sure we still have it in there because that's a really potential safety issue. I mean, runway 19 isn't used all that often, but when it is, you got to back taxi down. Typically, most people back taxi down 1533 and then back taxi down 19 to get to the end. So you're really impacting 2 runways with potential safety implications there. Thanks, Scott.
We can get the CIP committee to throw that into the mix at well, we're going to try to set up a meeting after this one so that we can start working on that kind of stuff for advice to everybody.
Your action tonight is to recommend approval of the 5-year airport capital improvement program and really the longer term list as well.
Hey, Scott, is that longer term list? Where is that available? Is that on the?
It's right here on the agenda materials.
What page is that?
I'm on page 212.
Okay, that came later. Yeah.
There we go.
And those longer term projects, we really haven't had Garver take a look at in terms of updating any costs. We've really been honed in on the short term list so far with Garver staff, and with the consultant selection process, those were the projects that they were selected to help us on initially anyway.
Okay.
Clancy,
Further discussion, or do we need?
Clancy, this is Larry Kellogg here.
Yes.
I want to get on Ron Wren's team. We have kicked the can down the road for a very, very long time on the extension to the 19 taxiway. It has been on the CIP in the near term, and it just keeps getting, now it's on the 5 to 10 years side of the line. That I'm sure I'm not the only small plane driver out there, but back taxing on 19, you are taxing into landing traffic at that point in time, which I know we're all got our heads out on a swivel looking at the incoming side. But if you've got a guy out there without a radio, it's really a dangerous situation to back taxi on 19. You're forcing people into either having to do an intersection departure or taxi into the potential of oncoming traffic. And it's a real safety issue. And it's been years. Obviously I've been at this for years. It never seems anybody's important. It doesn't become important to anyone.
It's been on the master plan since 2012 that I'm aware of, and
on the master longer than 2012.
Oh, I'm sure it has. Well, I wasn't here since then. I don't know, Scott, can we move that forward on this?
Sure. Yeah, we can move that up to the 1 to 5 year plan. Sure.
It's a serious safety issue for those of us, which is not obviously not all of us are driving G5. You get the crosswind day. 119 gets a lot of small traffic, and you're stuck with crossing 115 when it's active for the big guys, or back taxiing into oncoming traffic.
Well, I
Just an
I
FYI.
think we should try to move it forward.
Actually, I think that it made it to the front of the list, probably about 4 or 5 times through the years.
Yeah, and
And
it keeps getting
other
booted.
priorities came in and bumped it. So, but yeah, it made it to
The
one or two
priorities
spots.
are always the jets. It's always the incoming corporate traffic. It's never the local or visiting small planes on a crosswind day. You know, we were out there flying around the other day. We're on 119 doing the thing that the wind says we should be doing, but we're holding up. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have, but we're intentionally holding up because you've got King Airs and you've got Honda jets using 115 because they can and they have to.
Well, the only thing we can do is try to move it forward again.
We can and just
And
keep putting pressure.
Keep putting pressure on it, you know,
Does
so
that constitute a motion or can we just?
does it? Okay.
When you know, all the money that we're talking about on these other projects, which are good quality projects, this thing is a drop in the bucket compared to the kind of money you're talking on these other projects.
Well, it's possible that Garver could include this in the modifications to 1533 if they extended along with the ramp extension that they include that because that creates a safer environment for 1533. If they're going to do it all at the same time, we can maybe try and include that in the scope of that project.
Okay.
So
the last time we got close to this, ADG was still the consultant group for the deal. We were talking about something less than $300,000 to extend the taxiway and put in a run-up area. Now that was obviously years ago and inflation has taken over, but we still aren't talking about big money compared to these other projects.
Well, I think that the only thing we can do here, Larry, is have a motion and see if we can get it moved up and keep working on the financing. So,
Judge, I just don't, I'm with Ron. I just don't want you guys to lose sight of this thing.
Believe me, it's on my list.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will make a motion that.
Thanks again.
I'll make a motion that the extension of that's Taxiway Delta to the end of 119 be moved to the 1 to 5 year plan from the 5 to 10 year plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dan seconds. Okay. Richard.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Aye. David.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Tiffany.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
And Richard, I will take that motion to mean adopt the plan as presented with the addition of that taxiway extension.
Correct.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We're ready for the FBO report from Lloyd.
Finally, Lloyd, it's your turn.
Thank you. Lloyd Hetrick with FBO, Hetrick Air Service. I'm glad to hear that this got moved up to the 5 year because I've been around for so many years that it get kicked down and there is a safety there. So at least leave it there. You may not get it, but if it's there, you won't get it if it's not there. So I agree with that. To just enlighten a little bit on the runway extension, we had that meeting Friday with it. Sounds encouraging. We've got aircraft coming in now that just is of good size, as you've seen out there. And we get the question every now and then, can we get permission to land because the runway not built for their size. Of course, we city's been fortunate enough to grant it on a case by case, or we're not doing enough of it that it's a big issue. But this is just stuff we know about. How many people aren't coming because we're not, equipped for that type of aircraft? I know the university's pushing on some of us to look at doing some more charter work out of there with the other teams and stuff. So that would entail, we talked a little bit about 737s as a possibility, which would require the runways to be built stronger as well as the length of it. One of our aircrafts in particular, well, probably all of them, but the one in particular, it's very limited with contaminated runways. If we get rain or something, wetness on it, the numbers change and we can't even take off with what we got on the field now, let alone transients coming in and stuff. So there's a lot of plus to it. I think the maximum we are kicking around maybe 6,300 feet with going to the north. And it did get discussed, maybe even looking at the cost of, I think they were going to look at it, maybe just building a tunnel for 24. It might drop it underneath, and all of a sudden then the 7,000 becomes feasible. Cost involved, obviously, but at least it wouldn't limit us in the future. But I really think the numbers at 63 or something is probably going to be a good number that will probably take care of us for years to come. So with that being said, I think the other, I've had a lot of calls, not that we don't get them all the time anyway, but, and we push them off to Scott and Scott gets them, but hangar space is just so tough to get anywhere. T-hangar is what I'm referring to. We're hopefully going to accommodate some of the bigger hangars, but I don't know if the board could take another look at this and see if the city could find sources to finance another row or two at T-hangars. We talked about it years and years ago. I don't think it's been brought up, and Richard, you beat it before, but it's been, I bet probably been 5 or 6 years since we really looked at it. Yeah.
Not maybe a little bit longer than that.
It may have been.
And I think it was before all of the current city commissioners were on the commission.
Yeah.
I think,
but you know, we looked at it so many years ago in ways of maybe issuing bond money to recoup some of that. It really needs to be a city project, I think. City doesn't have property tax. They've got a lot of cost savings for a private person to come in and try to make the numbers work. It's just not feasible. Maybe the hangar rent need to be higher than they are to help that, but we're getting, I probably had 3 calls last week. It's just Kansas City is in the same boat. Topeka, they just got a waiting list. I keep telling people to put their name on the waiting list, even though there's probably no chance right off, but well, they don't do it. So the number is higher than what you see, I'm sure, Scott, without a doubt. So if it's something the board could look at and just see the feasibility, see if it's something the city could look at, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
We also have got the Piper Comanche Club is doing their 50th anniversary fly-in this August. They want to look at Lawrence as an option of coming in here. As I understand, they already made their plans for the hotel over at the Legends. What's the one? Different rooms, kind of a VRBO home. What is it? Anyway, they've set their reservations over there. So I don't know what Lawrence itself would gain from hotel rooms and stuff, but they're looking probably somewhere in that 40 to 50 aircrafts that would come in. And the dates right now that I'm being told is August 16th through the 21st. With those kind of numbers, we wouldn't have the tie-down space for them, but we could look at other options of maybe putting them on the west side in the grass with portable tie-down rope or something. But right now, they're just talking about it. I think they committed to the Kansas City area already, so now they're just trying to narrow down an airport. And they're excited about using Lawrence. They plan on coming over and taking a look at it, but it's just kind of FYI for right now that probably could come to play. So, good. That's all.
Depends on what's going on in the terminal.
Yeah.
Should be okay.
Yeah. So, good.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Lloyd,
you.
anything else?
No, nothing.
All right. I guess we're ready for the youth camp. Richard?
Well, I actually have two things. The youth camp, which is technically, or tentatively scheduled for May 20th. But before the youth camp, we have April 20th. We're trying to arrange flights for Leadership Lawrence. Leadership Lawrence, we haven't been able to do flights over the last couple of years because of COVID. So we're going to try to accommodate 3 classes at the same time. And so it depends on what's going on with the terminal building and how we do things. So we need to look into some logistics that way as far as accommodating people, but we're going to try to stretch it out throughout the day. But we're going to reach out to local pilots and aircraft owners to see if we can get some volunteers to give rides. In the past, we've usually had 3 to 4 aircraft and done about 30 people, 32 people. And so this time it'll be 3 times the amount. So if we can get more aircraft, maybe longer commitment throughout the day. My preference is we try to do more flights as early as we can in the day, so thermals aren't building up. Everybody really gets to enjoy the ride. By mid-afternoon, even in April, we'll start to get some bumps, weather permitting, depending on what the weather is like anyway, because it can be up and down that time of the year. But tentatively, April 20th and May 20th. And with the construction schedule we got this evening, that'll give us some areas to start improving so we can make sure we have places for all the modules for the class, and we'll reach out to different flying groups to make sure we're covered. On the youth aviation camp, we're always welcome to accepting volunteers that want to help teach modules, work with the kids. The more aircraft people that we have volunteer to give the kids rides, the more campers we can take. We've had a lot of our campers go on to aviation degrees, aviation careers. We have one particular young lady that we gave a flying scholarship to that she'll be a 5th-year senior at KU Aerospace. So it's good to see the kids actually progress in aviation and keep everybody going. We have had a few of the parents reach out and say, why don't we do this for the adults, have an adult camp and introduce adults to flying. So if we did that, we'd have to work with Lloyd and find the instructor time so that the parents could actually get some real flight time and experience. But that's something to put in the back of our minds a little bit, to think of, give the adults a day out at the airport. But as far as those two go, they were still at the ground level trying to get the logistics worked out so we can get both events. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, April 20th, Leadership Lawrence flights, we could use some volunteers. And the youth aviation camp will get more details as everything unfolds.
Okay. Well, Scott, is there anything you'd like for us to do, Richard?
Not yet. I think I just need to get some planning. I think as things get laid out a little bit better and we have an idea where everything's going to be, then maybe we can get a group of people together, get some of the 99s involved and get some things move forward.
Okay. The next item is the Capital Improvement Subcommittee. What I would like to do with that, we need to set another meeting, but I would also like to have some discussion here about expanding the scope of the committee to include short and long-term capital improvements so that we can work with Scott, like on the 5-year plan better, and also look at more of the finances. So if you guys would like to toss that around, I'd sure like to hear what you have to say, but I would like to do that. And then I'd like to, after we've decided, I'd like to try to get together with that committee again, even on short-term goals, fairly soon. I'm going to be out of commission for about 3 weeks, February and March, so with a new knee. So might need to get together sooner rather than later, or we just postpone it until afterwards. So comments?
Well, that sounds well within the purview of the committee.
Well, I think initially we were only doing short-term stuff to try to get a few things done, and now I think we just need to make sure that the board understands what we're up to. And we will, obviously, we can't decide anything. We're just going to work with Scott and anybody else that he needs to bring in to assist us in making recommendations to the board.
Yep, sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, anybody else? Tiffany, do you have a comment? Are you still there?
I do.
Go.
I think this is one.
Because you're on
I think this is. I I think this is a wonderful idea, and I say we move forward.
Okay, may I have, if there are no further comments, I'd like a motion and a second and a vote.
I motion to approve.
Okay, Tiffany? Second?
I'll second it.
Oops,
I'll second it.
Jim did, and let me get the list. All right, Richard,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
me, aye. David,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
and Tiffany.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous, and we will meet after the meeting and set something up. Tiffany, can you hang around, or should we call you afterwards?
I can.
Okay. Scott, are you, or item 3?
Yeah, I just wanted to again throw those dates out there. In the past, the city has funded aviation board members to attend these conferences this year, with the KAA conference being Atchison close by. I think that presents an opportunity for board members to attend that meeting as well. And the registration fees for KAA is very reasonable. I think they're like $150. So the 4 states, we'd probably have to limit it to 1 or 2 board members, as those registration fees are a little bit more. But yeah, if any board members would like to attend, I guess please let me know. I would highly encourage board members to attend. Clancy attended last year. The 4 states conference just provides an opportunity to learn a lot about aviation, FAA programs, meet FAA staff in person, and it's just I think it helps you guys do your job better.
And I can second that. I haven't been to a KAA meeting, but I do intend to go to this one this year. And what I would like to suggest is that, I know, Dan, you've been to one of the 4 states meetings, right? Has anybody else been? I think that anybody on the board who hasn't been should attend, and especially new members should do that. So
Yeah, it's really an opportunity to get a really good introduction
to a lot of things that I never even thought about, like handicap ramp access and a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't know is a thing. So I think it's worthwhile.
I think it really gives you the FAA's perspective of how they look at the airports, and that's a big key, not how we're looking at them, but how they look at them and how they measure different things at airports.
Yeah. And Scott, you know more about the Kansas Association of Airport Conference. What does it usually focus on?
The past couple of years I've attended, and I would throw out that for both of these conferences, the primary day, it's not a 3-day commitment in terms of your time. It's really
The Thursday is the meat of both of those conferences. So if you could even commit to, I would say, a day and a half, that the Thursday and Friday morning of both of those conferences, that's real, the big time commitment. At KAA, we also hear from FAA staff. It's usually different presentations on different topics. We try not to duplicate what's happening at 4 states. But you also get to meet airport managers, learn what's going on at other area airports, discuss their projects. The nice thing about kind of the KAA conference is we try to have just some roundtable discussions. It's a much smaller group versus 4 states, which is pretty huge. The KAA conference usually attracts about 80 members, and you can just really have some kind of in-depth discussions on current issues in terms of aviation projects, aviation management, with consultants, with FAA staff, airport managers. So you can learn a lot in that format.
Okay. So if anybody wants to go, let Scott know. And the last item is a possible goal setting and strategic planning meeting for the whole board. So I'd like some discussion on that. I think even with the smaller subcommittee working on everything, I think we might need, just a half a day or maybe a day for the board to sit down and say, okay, where do we want to go with all this stuff that we're talking about, and make sure that we're in sync, especially in view of the fact that someplace in the next, 2024 to 2026 fiscal years, we may be doing another master plan. And I think we need to have a good focus on not only the kinds of airplanes that we want to have come in here, but what that means for the whole infrastructure at the airport. So I open it for discussion.
I would love to attend a meeting like that.
I think that'd be great.
All right. Does anybody have any idea when we ought to do it? Richard, we have, we're going to have some new board members coming in sometime this summer, I think.
Yep.
Maybe for the August meeting. So I want to keep as much experience discussing all this as we can. So.
Well, a strategic planning meeting would be just an extension of another meeting, just with that being the agenda rather than
Well, either
the whole
that or
scope.
it could even be off-site, right?
I would,
I don't know. Scott would have to.
well, with the recording and the public record,
Yeah, that's what I want Scott to
on-site would be beneficial because we'd be there seeing everything.
Yeah.
The one comment I would have to make about the master plan is I would wait till the dust settles on all the stuff that's going on right now. And because a master plan being drawn up in the middle of the progress is going to be expired by the time the ink dries. So once all this dust settles, when we get finished, if we can get the government funding to do the runway and ramp and things like that, that will make the new master plan that much more valuable.
Sure. Scott, what do you have to say about the meeting?
Well, you have your bylaws. You can call a special meeting if you like. We don't necessarily have to have the meeting in this chamber. So we could hold it at an offsite location. I think the requirement would just be that it be a publicly accessible facility because it would be an open meeting under the Kansas
Well,
Open Meetings Act.
It's not necessarily to make decisions. What it is just kind of strategize. And that would certainly be presented in a report that we would have.
Does that require minutes and things?
I don't know, Scott, does it require minutes? Or do we just present our
I think if you have a quorum, I think minutes have to be kept.
Generally, we would want to keep minutes. The other thing I would probably want some feedback on is whether you would desire kind of a facilitator for that type of meeting, an outside facilitator.
I would certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, I would absolutely appreciate
Yeah,
that.
we need a non-involved person to kind of guide us all on that. So, do we have any suggestions about timing on that? This spring?
Maybe after you're recuperated enough to.
Yeah.
You getting your landing gear set up?
Yes, well, the question is whether the airplane and I are both grounded. Probably for about 8 weeks, but I'll be mobile after about 3, so. But that doesn't mean you guys can't come to my house.
Would this be a good opportunity for us to maybe sit down with one of the Garver managers and just kind of get an idea, because Garver is the engineering company and the person that's really spearheading a lot of this stuff, that they could direct us. They work with the FAA, they know funding, they know progress at airports, that they could kind of spearhead things and get us in a realistic
So
direction.
you're thinking of them as a facilitator?
Yeah,
I think so.
that'd be a really good idea.
What do you think, Scott?
Garver, I'm so impressed with them, Richard. They've offered just great resources. They're a nationwide company that, we had a person from Wichita drive up on Friday to the meeting we had at the airport. They have nationwide resources they would be happy, I think, to provide to us.
So is that something we'd have to have approval from the city if they're going to, would it be city funds to pay for that person to come up?
I would expect Garver would do that gratis, but we would certainly find some airport funds to make that happen, yeah.
Great vocabulary.
Okay, do we want to set, or do you want to play that, how do you want to do that? I don't know how to set this up. If we're going to do it, I would suggest we do it before the next meeting.
Definitely, so we
Maybe
could have
in the
something to bring to the table.
Pardon?
But we've got a lot on Garver's table right now
We do.
with the, trying to get the estimates together for all the other stuff. Do we want to do it maybe after
Sure.
they get that stuff together, which would push it probably into April or May?
In April.
The construction start date's April 10th. I mean, I would
Yeah.
imagine once they get going with that, maybe just
Especially
after.
for like second or third week in April.
Yeah,
Would that work? Scott, would that work for you?
I'll make any date work you set.
All right. Calendars, guys. Let's see if we can figure it out.
Selfishly, April 18th looks good.
What day is that?
It's Tuesday, April 18th.
Tuesdays usually aren't good because of city commission meetings, if we're gonna have Scott attend it.
I said selfishly.
Yeah.
What other days are bad days? Or let me assume Wednesdays are good.
Richard, your leadership flights are on April 20th, right?
Yep.
So that's a Thursday and that's that. So I don't know.
About the 19th.
Works for me.
19th works for me.
19th.
Okay.
19th?
This never happens.
There you go.
What time?
What time?
Ruin a good time. We had a date.
Do you want to do it? Well, it'll be light later then, but you want to still shoot for our normal 6 o'clock?
Well, either that or we can just start in the afternoon.
I would prefer earlier.
Okay.
You would prefer what?
I can do it if it's earlier. I have an event that night.
Okay.
How about 3?
3 works.
3?
Yep.
Okay. 3 o'clock.
We'll make it happen.
3 o'clock, April 19th.
Where? Here or at?
I'll have to look at facilities and I'll push that out to the board as soon as we have something identified.
Oh, that's because we're in the middle of construction, or the beginning of construction, so. It'd be neat if we could find a place at the airport. But with Garver coming, I think that'd be, if Garver can make it, that'd be awesome.
My hangar may still be empty.
Yeah, there you go. I can make mine empty.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other public input?
Do you want to create an agenda for that meeting?
I think we need to.
Do you want a subcommittee to create the agenda, or do you?
Subcommittee for the subcommittee?
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting about a meeting for the meeting.
Subcommittees.
I know, this is right.
I don't know that, I was gonna say, if we're setting strategic goals and planning meeting, isn't that the agenda already?
That's basically what I think.
Okay.
Then just not include the normal.
Okay.
feedback.
So we have set a strategic goals and planning meeting for April 19th at 3 o'clock and the place to be determined. Okay. All right, anything else? Next meeting is, the next official meeting is May 3rd. Here, I assume, Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Jim and Richard seconds. All right, here we go.
All right.
Richard,
Yes.
Dan,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Aye. David.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Tiffany.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Dan?
All right. We are now adjourned. And Tiffany, would you hang around?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.